Hey, everybody. This is kind of like a little surprise. Where am I? Huh, there I am. Happy almost Merry Christmas. Did you know? Did you get the memo? Yeah, it's almost Christmas. Yeah, so happy Merry Christmas. Almost. And what I decided to do is a quick live stream to kind of go over what I would call kind of the unique attributes, the peculiarities of what in fact is the predecessor to the Singer 201-2, the Rolls Royce of Singers that I talk about a lot on this channel. So if you don't know anything about the Class 101 that is sitting right here, number one, it came by way of eBay, and Mary, my dear friend from Washington State, made the purchase. And this is going back a ways, and had the sellers send it directly to the workshop. So I finally, with all of the busyness of the workshop and the holidays and everything else, at last, I'm getting this really cool 101 on the workbench. And all I can say is it's very, very different. It's really pretty much 180 degrees different from its successor, the 201-2. The 101s came on the scene going all the way back to the 1920s. Right around 1920, they came on the scene, and they were a progressive, innovative type machine for a number of reasons. One, they had this great potted motor that you can't quite see in the shot. I'll show it to you this way. They had this great potted motor that gave it a direct drive capacity. No need for a belt. It was able to right away spin up, and it was true. It had that positive traction. All the things that you love about the 201-2 really grew out of the Class 101 that came on the scene right around 1920. So the first one on the scene, as you might suspect, was the 101-1. And it was on the scene from 1920 until 1925, so right around 5 years. It was electric, it was table mounted, and if you ever are looking for a matching table, you're going to want to look for Singer table number 17, 18, or 19. Those are the models that would have gone, or those are the table models that would have gone with the very first Class 101, the 101-1. Right after it, on the scene about 2 years later, in 1922, we got the 101-2, and that was on the scene from 1922 until 1926. And it was a rotary hook style machine, potted motor, automatic lubrication system, knee controller, and you would have matched a cabinet number 20 with it. And by automatic lubrication, it means that they developed this spider system that's underneath this bed. The entire bed on the models from the 101-2 forward, the entire bed would just come right off. There's different screws that hold it in place. And then when you take it off, it looks almost like a spider system of little web works going out to the key lubrication points on the bottom of the machine. And that was the automatic lubrication system that Singer was so doggone proud of. They were so proud of it. Hold on just a second. I think my music stopped. Oh, I see why. Because I didn't do the audio library thing. I did the regular thing. Hold on a second. Let me fix this, so I don't have to keep going back and forth for more music. And I know that one of Mary's favorite music genres is, let me see if I can pull it up and I'll tell you. One of Mary's favorite music genres is hip hop. So I'm definitely going to be clicking that. Definitely going to be clicking holiday, clicking jazz and blues. What else? I'll put on classical, click that as well. Click cinematic because I like that. Yeah, let's click children's too. All right, apply. Now we should be autopilot pretty much. I hope. So, where was I? I was talking about kind of the evolution of the Class 101, right? Again, the 101-1 came on the scene in 1920, was on the scene for about 5 years until 1925. That was an electric table-mounted model, and then they moved into the 101-2 right around 1922. That was a rotary hook potted motor style, very much like Mary's here. It had the auto lubrication system. It was knee controlled, and you would match a cabinet number 20 with the -2 model. Right after that, right around 1925, the 101-3 came on the scene. It also was a rotary hook system, potted motor, automatic lubrication, knee controller, but you would match that model with a cabinet number 40. And again, that was on the scene from 1925 until 1930. Right after that came the series of 101s that Mary's would fall into, okay? Mary's machine would have been a 101-4, and it came on the scene right around 1929. And they produced it until 1937. Rotary hook potted motor, but it had chromium plating. That was a big deal. The 101-4 was the first Class 101 series to promote the chromium plating that gave it that pretty look. That was the jewelry that came on the scene between 1929 and 1937. So Mary picked a jewel of a machine that all of a sudden added that pretty chromium, shiny. It attracted all the crows. All the crows in the neighborhood all of a sudden were like, holy mackerel. Those other 101s didn't have anything on you. You've got that chromium jewelry look. And I think that's part of the one of the reasons, at least, that Mary picked this machine is they don't have a huge amount of filigree and decaling on them, but that chromium look, that shininess to them, all of a sudden captured people's fancy. Yes, it did. So the 101-4 is one of my favorites too, because of that chromium plating addition that this series of the 101s all of a sudden offered. Oh, let me say a quick hello to Emma, to Susie, to Dr. T, and say welcome. Great to have you guys jump in on this kind of impromptu live stream on Mary's machine that again was purchased by way of eBay. And she had the seller send it directly to the workshop saying, I don't want it until I know it's going to be perfect. And so Mary is a very, very smart lady, very smart lady. Also, Mary is one of those folks like Mindy and Emma and Roz and Sunny and Paula, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on of folks that always are willing to jump in on a cause that I bring to you, all the way back to the History Museum from South Bend, Indiana, to our recent fundraiser that we did for the Humane Society here locally in Oconto, Wisconsin. I just have an inner circle of champions that I just love to death, and Mary is definitely one of them. So thank you for all of that support and encouragement. So anyway, blah, 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 blah. So after the 101-4 came on the scene, what would you suspect? What would be the next model after the 101-4 like we're looking at right here that belongs to my dear friend Mary from Washington State? What series do you think, what subclass, what subversion would follow the 101-4? We've already had the 101-1, -2, -3, -4. What would follow it? What do you think? While you're guessing what that next subversion might be, I'm going to get a quick drink of water. Where's my water? And any of you folks don't know, Dr. T, who in the chat right now came on the scene, it looks like in position 3, right behind Susie and Emma. Our friend Dr. T is from the great country of, what do you think? Where's he from? If you said Finland, but didn't type it in there, you would be right. Dr. T is from the great country of Finland. Emma nailed it. Great job, Emma. So I just totally lost my thought. Oh yeah. What was our next subversion? Let me move this over here for a second. Kind of look at this great machine like this. Yeah, Susie's right too. Great job, Susie. Yep, Dr. T visits us by way of Finland. Finland, I've never been to. I would love to visit Finland someday, and maybe Dr. T would let me sleep on his couch if he has a couch. If not, we'll buy a couch, because buying a couch would be a lot cheaper for me to sleep on Dr. T's couch than for me to stay probably in a local resort or a hotel. I can only imagine it's very, very expensive. So following the 101-4 that we're looking at right here, we might jump to certain conclusions. Okay, wouldn't it be a -5 or something like that? Nope, they decided to mix it up and keep it real. So following the 101-4 that we're looking at right here, they came up with a -10. A -10! What's with all the skipping? What, do they have some sort of an aversion to a -5 or a -6 or a -7 or a -8 or a -9? I love the number 9. I don't know if anyone else loves the number 9, but I sure do. They decided to skip all of those potential subversion numeric choices, and they went from a 101-4 like this right here all the way to a -10, and that came on the scene right around 1922. And the -10 was on the scene from 1922 all the way until 1926. And it also was a rotary hook, potted motor, automatic lubrication, knee-controlled machine. But guess what? They thought, okay, we went with this chromium stuff, and everybody got all excited about that. We're going to totally change courses and go away from continuing the chromium theme. On the -10, we're going to go to an aluminum version of the Class 101. So if you didn't know it, the reason they skipped all of those subversions and they decided not to go with a -5, -6, -7, -8, -9 is because they were in their think tank somewhere out there. And they were saying, what can we do next? What can we do next? And they said, we're going to go away from the chromium and we're going to go to aluminum. So they all of a sudden decided to go to the equivalent of a featherweight 101 and make it incredibly lightweight so that folks could have more portability with it. After that came the 101-11. They decided at this point, okay, we skipped all the other numbers. Now we're going to go in sequence again, and we're going to go with a 101-11. That came on the scene 3 years after the 101-10, which means it came on the scene right around 1925. And then it was on the scene from 1925 until 1929. That model, the -11, was also a rotary hook, potted motor, automatic lubrication, knee controller, but unlike its predecessor that was still in the table. Why would they make an aluminum version of the Class 101 and leave it in a table? What's the point? So finally, they got all their think tank together and they said, wait a second, we made the 101-10 that came out in 1922 and was on the scene until 1926. We made it aluminum, but we left it in the table. What's up with that? So they finally took the 101-11, again, that came on the scene only 3 years after the Dash 10, and they put it into a carrying case. Boy, that took them a while, didn't it? What's up? I don't get it. But at any rate, so we've got two versions of the Class 101 that were both aluminum machines. One was still stuck in the table, and that's the Dash 10 that was on the scene from 1922 until 1926. And then finally they got a clue in 1925. They introduced the 101-11, and they ended up putting it into a carrying case. Finally. And that was on the scene again for 4 years from 1925 to 1929. And if you're ever looking for a portable case for the 101-11, you're going to be looking for case number 204. 204 is the right case for that particular subversion of the Class 101. Yeah, it is. So that is a lot of information, and yes, you might be tested on it, so hopefully you took good notes. Otherwise, you can always rewind and revisit that information again. But I want you guys to be knowledgeable so that if you're out in Facebook groups or other places where a lot of misinformation is being distributed, even last night at the premiere we did on that really cool Model 128 that I presented earlier, there was a gentleman that was part of our flock that kept popping up with information that I knew was incorrect, and he was relentless. And finally, at the end, I lost my cool, and I ended up muting him, which means if I've got somebody in a live stream or a premiere that continues to propagate misinformation, we've got a valuable classroom here. And I want you guys to have the right information, which is why I go into that long discourse about all the 101 subclasses, dates, blah, 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 because I want you guys to be equipped with the right information. But if someone is relentless in trying to propagate misinformation, I have the authority, my moderators have the authority as well to mute that person. And so I finally did that, and I did reach out and we did communicate via email last night, rather late. And I said, if you can come on board with supporting the right facts, the right information, instead of just guesswork and presenting it as facts to our flock, then I'll unmute you again. But I'm not going to do that right away. This gentleman is out in Virginia, and very strong-willed. I like strong-willed people. A lot of my leaders are strong-willed too, but they deal with the facts. They don't deal with misinformation. So hope that makes sense. And hopefully, if anyone caught that at the tail end of the premiere, they didn't feel like I was being overly harsh. I got to do what I got to do. You know what I mean? I got to do it. So, we've got another. Did it ever occur to you that auctioneers mostly look for bidding? Hey, if my moderating team, I don't know who I've got here right now. I think I have Emma. If you could keep an eye on this gentleman, lady, whoever it is, exactly, Susie Kanai, constant and never-ending improvement. Exactly right. Keep an eye on our the screen name starts with a K. This person popped up last night in the premiere as well, and they're writing something that doesn't make much sense to me. Just if y'all could keep an eye on our friend that their screen name starts with K, and they wrote something about auctioneering or auctioning or something like that. But Emma, Paula, Bill, Sonny, if you guys feel like you need to take any action, go ahead and do that, okay? Because I'm gonna focus on our 101 right here, our 101-4. So to test to see how you guys were listening, and I threw a lot of dates and information out there, right? But what year did Mary's 101-4 come on the scene? Does anyone remember the 101-4? And I'm going to type it into the chat in a little bit so you guys can have it there as a reference point. All right, I just typed it into the chat because I don't see anybody responding, and that's totally fine because I hit you guys with a lot of dates and a lot of information. I'm just going to hit enter, and then you'll see that I apparently don't know that Singer should be capitalized. Oh, so the Singer 101-4 came on the scene in 1929, and it was out there until 1937. That's this machine right here. Now, you might say to yourself, well, that's all well and good, Scott, but how do we know the specific date or the specific birth date of a 101-4 like Mary's right here? Well, that is a very, very good question. And the way we get the answer to that question is we have to tilt this machine back. Now, let me warn you, if you acquire one of the class 101s, unless it happens to be one of those aluminum versions that I mentioned to you before, the Dash 10 and the Dash 11 are aluminum versions of the class 101. They're much, much lighter. But the regular 101s, like Mary's Dash 4, they are like a boat anchor. They're actually a little bit heavier than a 201-2, if you can imagine that. And part of it is the design of the bottom of the machine. Instead of being a flat bottom, it's a barrel bottom. And I'll show you what that looks like. But I'm going to have to grab some of my weights to counterbalance this, because otherwise this sucker is going to tip over. So as I tilt it back, I'm going to be reaching for weights at the same time. I'll grab my glasses here. Because I'll tell you one thing, this base is not going to be enough to counterbalance it. So I'm tilting it back. See how that thing is going to tip over? So I'm going to hold on to it with one hand. I do have it anchored real well right now, and then I'm going to reach across and grab these heavy weights that were made in Canada. And one's not going to be enough, even though it's probably about 8 or 10 pounds. I've got to grab two of them. Now I can let go of this confidently, knowing it's not going to tip over, thank goodness. Because Mary loves her machines, and even though she's a very forgiving, kind soul, she would probably freak out if it all of a sudden fell off the workbench. So right here, you can see, if you look carefully, right here we've got a serial number. And if anyone wants to look it up, I got to clean it up maybe a little bit so we can actually see it. I'm going to use a little bit of steel wool just to clean this up just a little bit so it's more easy to read. So if you can't see it in the shot, I'll bring the camera a little bit closer. Hopefully right there you can see it. Now, not all the 101s have their serial plate right here below the pillar. Right now we're looking basically below the pillar area of this 101-4. That's where this serial number is located. Other 101s will have the serial number located in other spots. They also might have the actual birth date of the machine stamped on the machine. The 101-4 also stamps it on the machine as well, but I'll have you guys look it up first, and then we'll take a look at the birth date on the bottom. So it's AD 345685, if I'm reading that correctly. AD 345685. Now, while someone is potentially looking that up, we're going to go over also, again, I never assume anything in our classroom. We've got students in our classroom that are brand new to VSM. We have others that are more veterans. We have some that are right in between, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the serial number down as well, and then I'm going to show you how to look it up. just so that that can also be a learning experience as well. So AD 345 685. And again, the cool thing about Mary's machine is you can't see it, but right below here on the bottom of this barrel section right here, where I'm running my finger, is stamped the entire birth date of Mary's machine. They not only put the serial number, but they put the entire birth date here. And then to make it real easy, they put a number 4 right here. So you could see straight away that the subversion or subclass of this machine is a -4. So at this point in time, when they were introducing the -4s, they didn't want to create any confusion for folks. So they stamped it with a 4. They gave you a serial number you could look up. And then beyond that, on the bottom of this barrel area right here, they stamped the entire birth date of the machine, month, day, and year. I think that's pretty cool. I think that's super cool. Oh, I'm going to look at the chat real quick before I go over to the computer. Okay, so Susie, well done, Susie. I'm going to verify the information that you wrote. So I'm going to write down the information that Susie just found. And that is April 15th, 1931. And she's saying that there were only 10,000 machines in that production group. If that is true, if 10,000 machines were made in the production group for this particular machine, does that make it common or does that make it fairly rare? Because the average production group size for Singer is typically what size? I'm throwing a couple of questions out there. Typical production group size for Singer is what on average? And if Susie's information is correct that there were only 10,000 made in this production group, does that make it common or rare? All right, I'm going to go away from the chat. I'm not going to be able to see the chat. So if you guys are typing something, forgive me if it sounds or feels like I'm not paying attention, because I'm not. All right, let's take a look over here. You can see the precarious position we have this 101 in right now. I'm counting on those weights, also counting on the hinges as well. All right, let me turn this down. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to do a lookup. So if you go to a basic Google prompt like this right here, you go to a basic Google prompt. See if I can get this a little bit closer. There we go. That's pretty good. Go to a basic Google prompt and then type in Singer serial numbers. And once you type in Singer serial numbers, the first one that probably will come up is right here, and it's ismax.net. They have a very reliable database. So you can go to that confidently knowing if you've got a serial number, in most cases, unless we're talking about slant-o-matic machines or machines that were made outside of the US, and it's a nightmare if you ever have to look up machines that were made in France, because their factory burned down in France and they lost all of their records. My friend Olga from Paris, France, that used to be part of my leadership team, she and I discovered that one time. I think it was almost midnight when we were chatting, and she asked about that. And I did some quick searching and I said, there are no records left of the machines that were made in France. They were all destroyed. So what a bummer, huh? What a bummer. So we know that our serial number starts with AD. So I'm going to click on this one right here. I'm going to click on that one right there, AD. And we know we have a 6-digit number starting with 3. So I'm going to start scrolling down. And it's 345 that we're looking for. So right here, where my cursor is, if you can see that, I'll actually highlight it. I think I can highlight it. Maybe I can't. Let me do it like this. So I have it highlighted now, and what Susie had said was April 15th, 1931, 10,000 made. Guess what? I'm so excited. Hold on, hold on. I rang the bell in honor of Susie because she nailed it, and she made it look really, really easy how quickly she posted that. So
that was easy.
I'm going to do that for her as well. So great job, Susie. The machine that we're looking at on the workbench that belongs to Mary from Washington State. Sorry about that. The machine that belongs to Mary from Washington State is, in fact, a Singer 101-4. Only 10,000 were made, and the average production group size, and again, if someone already wrote it in there, forgive me, because I'm not looking at, I've got two computers I'm working on right now. The one is across the room by the machine, and I'm over here. But the average production group size for Singer was typically right around 50,000 machines. 50,000 machines. So this is 1/5 the size production group size that Singer would typically roll machines out with. So in my personal opinion, Mary's 101-4, because of the production group size only being 10,000, is on the rare side of class 101s. That's a very small production group size. Obviously, there are other machines with even smaller group sizes like this model 149 where they only made 100 of them. In all likelihood, and someone else could look it up, but typically when you have really tiny production group sizes like only about 100 or 200, those are typically going to be the light industrial or industrial machines that Singer made, or specialty machines that they would make as well. But in a standard household sewing machine like the 101-4, 10,000 is very much on the small side. So we know that Mary's machine was born April 15th, 1931. Does anyone want to do the math? And looking towards 2022, we're almost at a new year, right? We're almost at a new year. How old will Mary's machine be in 2022 if the birth date of the machine is April 15th, 1931? How old? Type it in the chat, and I'm going to move back over to the other computer now that Susie nailed it with the proper birth date, and we'll get back to some of the nuances of this 101-4. And I'm just going to take a quick peek at the chat here. So Emma initially said 55,000, then she said 50,000. And the average production group size for Singer was typically right around 50,000 machines. So great job, great job, great job. Oh, I see we have our friend from Brazil back. Christina, welcome, Christina from Brazil. Yeah, and Dr. T wrote just above that, 10,000 is quite small for household machines. I agree, Dr. T. Again, it's about 1/5 the size of what Singer generally would produce. So this 101-4 really is a treasure among treasures, isn't it? Just seeing if there's anything else that anyone else. I think I'm pretty much caught up. So if we didn't have the knowledge of all of you brilliant students out there and fellow teachers, hey, Stephen, welcome, Stephen. If there are in other circles out there, let me just say this honestly, other circles out there, there are other YouTube channels, there are Facebook groups, there are other places like that where people try to gather information. But those students out there are not nearly as smart as you guys. So Susie was able to straight away look up this serial number and give us the full birth date, give us the production group size. For those people that aren't quite as skilled or knowledgeable, again, Singer decided that they were going to make it super duper easy. And so right here, and I can kind of show you a little bit, see if I could do it with a bigger mirror. I'm going to do my best. with a bigger mirror. I'll move this light over as well. Can you see that in the mirror? And what we have is the actual birth date of the machine right there. See it? So Singer wanted to, with this 101-4, make sure that no one was confused about when this machine came on the scene. So they gave us the serial number. They gave us the subclass 4 number up there where I showed you before by the serial plate. And then they also stamped the machine right underneath this barrel area where you can see it in the mirror. I love that. I love when machine makers are so thoughtful. They want to dispel any confusion so folks know exactly what they have. So if you come across a class 101, you can check these various areas to try to identify what subversion it is. Check the underside of the barrel here. That would face towards the rear of the machine. You can check the serial plate like Susie did for us to look it up. And you can also look on the body of the machine and see if there's a stamped number, as they did with a number of the 101 series machines, to make it clear right away what subversion it was. Okay, hopefully that all makes sense. All right, now let's go to something even more confusing than the stuff that we've already covered. Something even more confusing. After I put on some music again. Hold on. Okay, the even more confusing thing is this, and I'm going to have to move these weights again to do this. Because the question that comes to myself often, that probably wasn't very good English, but the question that comes to me often is, I've got a 101 and I have no idea how to get the balance wheel off because I'm wanting to clean that, I'm wanting to lubricate it, I'm wanting to do whatever. So let me move these weights again, hold this base in place, and let's see if we can shed some light on that point of confusion that a lot of people have. This is a real heavy machine, y'all. Like I said, it comes in heavier than the 201-2. All right, so let me rotate this back down. And because on the bottom of the machine, if you can't see it, are the plugins for the motor and for the light. I've got them kind of taped onto the way right now, so when I rotate this down, with the bottom of this machine having a barrel style to it, this could easily crack these plastic plug-in points, or even this side could. So I kind of tape them onto the way so that I don't damage them, or it's just going to add more work. So I'll rotate this down real slow. Watch your wiring on the edge as well. Your wiring right here, make sure it doesn't get crimped in there. And once we get it rotated all the way back down, I'll lock it into place. And I should mention that Mary specifically wanted this machine to be in a carrying base, or at least a base rather than a table. So she had gone ahead and ordered this base for me and then had it sent to the workshop. She's a go-getter gal, you know what I mean? She's a go-getter gal. So if I rotate this kind of around now, kind of probably going to need even more space. Move my water over there. So as we're looking at this balance wheel, the typical setup on most machines, I just don't want to get this too close to the edge because this sucker is really heavy. There we go. That makes me a little bit more comfortable. Okay, so on most machines, if you want to remove a balance wheel, all you're going to do is release this stop action screw right here. You're going to unscrew it. You're going to take the clutch retainer off, and then you're going to be able to slide this off straight away. Not the case on the 101s. The other thing you have to be aware of right away, and if all of you could help me spread the information on this so that folks know about it, it would be great. When we take this stop action off that we normally would release so that we can wind a bobbin, right? So only the balance wheel turns. Okay? When we take this off, there are a series of washers on here that have to come off in a specific sequence and have to be put back on in a specific sequence. Otherwise, the balance wheel will be wobbly. It'll create all kinds of issues with the machine. So I'm going to take these off in the order so you can see them on camera. And that way, if you get a 101 or you see somebody else out there that's struggling with the issue, you can refer them to this video and they can see exactly what order they come off in, if that makes sense. Oh, okay. Good, good. I'm glad, Stephen. Stephen was just looking at his 101 this morning, and some of the things we just covered are going to be a resource to him. Isn't that great? That's the power of our classroom. The power of our classroom is we learn from each other and we share information, and we share correct information, factual information. So that's good. Very, very good. Oh, hey, Mary. You can tell I'm just totally clueless. Mary, the owner of this machine, is also in our live chat right now on this live stream. Hi, Mary. Merry Christmas to you. Yes, Mary, this is your 101. This is your 101. Indeed. And we know because Susie helped us look it up, plus we found it on the bottom of your machine. We know that your machine was from what year? Did you guys keep a track of it? What year was Mary's machine born? You guys remember what year Mary's machine was born? Come on, you guys. Yes, Emma and Susie are both correct. Mary from Washington State, her 101-4 was born in 1931. So that tells us that with the -4 series coming on the scene in 1929, her machine was born right about in the middle of that production for that subclass, because the 101-4 again was made from 1929 until 1937, and Mary's is in 1931. So almost right in the middle of that production window. That's kind of cool. So the secrets of the balance wheel on the 101 really are something that you need to approach it very slowly and very carefully. Again, because of the way they designed this balance wheel over here. Let me get that stop action screw out, and then we'll kind of take things off and you can begin to see what I'm talking about. And again, when you're loosening up a stop action screw like this, you don't have to take it all the way out unless you want to. Just loosen it about 2 or 3 turns, and then it should clear so you can get it off. And when we took the stop action off on most machines, there's only one clutch retainer. You guys have seen that numerous times. There's usually only one little clutch retainer, like you can see right there. And that's what as this pin is rotated on the stop action, that little pin right there, you're only going to be able to rotate it so far, and then it's going to encounter the edge of that stop action right there, and that's where you can only rotate it to that extent, and then all of a sudden the balance wheel is free moving, so the main shaft is no longer engaged. On the 101, there are all kinds of secrets behind that stop action cover right there. Let's take that off first, and then you'll see what I mean. I'm going to use my magnet as a resource here, and hopefully I don't block it for you. So I'm going to get this one off first. Normally, that's all we would have right there. That's it. We would only have this one piece to deal with, and then the balance wheel would come off straight away. Well, they decided to mess with us. Again, the fun thing about the Singer 101 that again came on the scene in 1920 is that this machine that they made in 1920, and then we had the 201-2 follow it, these machines are 180 degrees polar opposite. And I've talked about that in other premieres before. You know, as far as how you align the flat side of the needle, the way the balance wheel turns, everything about the machine is just 180 degrees opposite. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to very gently bring this balance wheel out. You're going to have a little bit of a flux like that. I'm going to bring it out a little bit, and you're going to all of a sudden see from the side all of those things that are hidden. Washer after washer after washer. I think the proper term would be spacer, because what these spacers do on this main shaft extension by the stop action is they create a field of movement for this balance wheel so that it turns true and it turns smoothly. If you lose one of these spacers, or if you reassemble it incorrectly, this balance wheel is not going to turn true. It's not going to turn without some sort of a weird wobble, which will create issues for the machine. So we're going to take them off in order, one by one, by one, by one, by one, and then I'll show you how to take off the entire balance wheel. Because taking off the balance wheel is another unique thing about this 101, this class 101. Trying to get the best angle so you can see. Maybe right there is good, huh? Just so I have enough room to work. All right, so one by one, we'll get these off. There's our first one. And you can see this one does not have an internal notch on it. Some of them will have internal notches. That's washer number one, or spacer number one. We'll have to use our magnet at this point. Here's our next one coming off. Two of them are trying to come off at the same time. Here's our next one, and you notice this one does have one of those little notches in the middle right there that will slide over the threaded point right there. And I haven't done any cleaning on Mary's machine yet, so if you see dirt, that's okay, because I haven't attacked any of the dirt on it yet. You take off our next one. You can see this one does not have one of those notches, but it's going to fit in this notch right up there. We're not done yet, folks. We're not done. Now we do have one of those little notches in the center again. See it? So this is what we've taken off right here. I talk about sew-off sandwiches, right? this is what we've taken off, and this is the order that we've taken them off in right here for this 101-4 balance wheel. So you can rewind it if you want to see the order again, but keeping them in the proper order is absolutely critical on this balance wheel. Now, you might say to yourself, okay, can we get the balance wheel off now? Because we took all those things off, didn't we? It's not coming off. What's going on? What the heck? Do I need a hammer? Mary, should I use a hammer on this to get it off? That's not working either. Doggone it. What the heck is going on? Well, I can show you what's going on. And it'll be easier if we tilt the machine back again. So let me do that. So I'm going to grab those weights again to counterbalance this puppy. This is a very, very heavy machine, folks. Very heavy machine. Okay, so I'm going to grab the camera now and show you why we couldn't get that balance wheel off. Because right on the inside here, right on the inside, they decided to put two different set screws to mount it to the main shaft so that it wouldn't come off straight away. So we have one right there. And then if I rotate the balance wheel, we have another one just opposite of it right there. So that's number one. Number two. One. I feel like an eye test now. I got to do it. Is number one better or number two better? Number one, number two. So what I have to do now is I have to remove those two screws. They're more so bolts than anything else. And then we should be able to get this balance wheel off. So I'm going to set the camera back down and work on those screws. Now I have to confess to you something. I have already pre-treated these with my torch to loosen them up. You might have to do the same thing because this machine is from 1931. In all likelihood, until I did it, this balance wheel has never been taken off of this machine. So those screws, those bolts become fused in there, and you might have to use some high heat to loosen them up. And what I use, and most of you that are good followers know that I use a little torch like this. It's a little handheld torch, and it hits it with butane at about 1,000 degrees, and it loosens those screws up straight away. And this is what it looks like right here. And I'm sure that there's a specific term for this type of screw, but I don't remember what it's called. But these are very, very common on sewing machines, this type of screw. It's usually going to have a pinch factor. You'll use something similar to this on the output pulley on most motors to mount that pulley to the output shaft on the motor. And they're just real handy that way. So I'm going to put this in our magnetic tray so I don't lose it. And then I'm going to take out one more. So I'll just show you kind of what that looks like once we get it out. Now we've got to go after the other one. There it is. Now, I should let you know that even once you take these out, if you try to just easily pull that balance wheel off, there's going to be a lot of varnishing and buildup between the main shaft and the balance wheel, and it may not come off super duper easy. It might come off super easy, but it might not. So if it's a little bit sticky, don't say, that Scott was telling me a tale and it didn't come off like he said it would. It's probably just stuck. So I'm going to very gently rotate the machine back down. It's not going to sit level because I've got those counterbalance weights in there right now so that Mary's machine doesn't tip over. This machine, again, is going to be heavier than the 201-2. So I'm going to rotate it down about this far, very gently. And then I'm going to pick up the entire machine carefully and see if I can rotate it towards the camera without knocking the camera off. So we've taken out those two set screws, and now we're just going to try to slide this off straight away. If it doesn't slide off straight away, then you'll want to use a mallet like this, not a metal hammer, but a metal like this, or a hammer like this made out of wood, because it's not going to damage the chromium. Remember, the unique thing about Mary's 101-4, about all of the Dash 4s, it was the first year that Singer in the class 101 used chromium plating on all of the appointments of the machine to really, really make it gorgeous. So we don't want to chip that. We don't want to damage it. So we just very gently tap it. And again, I haven't cleaned Mary's machine yet. See how scummy it is, though? So if you have a Dash 4 and you took all of those washers off and you still couldn't get the balance wheel off, this is why. This is why. And then now you have access to the main shaft, which has a sleeve on it that allows that balance wheel to flux in and out so you can get those washers off. See this? So when you put all this back on, you want to make sure that that sleeve is pushed all the way in. See, that's out. That's in. If you don't push it all the way in, you're not going to be able to get the balance wheel all the way on so you can fit all of those crazy washers back on in the proper sequence. Okay? And obviously, if you want to take off the guard, you can take this guard off as well for even more cleaning, which is what I'll do. There's a screw right there, and there's a screw right there, and then this entire assembly comes off so you can do deep cleaning behind it. You can clean all of the appointments of the bobbin winder as well, and just really do a proper job. Because right now we got all this yucky stuff in there, and I would say it's not patina. It's not. Oh, look at the machine is old. Yeah, of course it is. It's from 1931. But all of this dirt and all this grime and all this other stuff, even on this sleeve that kind of comes in and out for the balance wheel, that's all going to hold the machine back. It's all going to make this motor work a lot harder than it needs to. And another quick little pointer I'll show you is to get this motor off. It's not like some machines where you can just pull it off straight away. On this one, you've got to give it a twist counterclockwise like I just did, and then wiggle it off slow but sure. And then all of a sudden you have access so you can view that really cool earlier version of the potted motor that Singer developed before they came out with the upgraded version for the 201-2. They're both equally great motors. In fact, does anyone know? I'm going to ask you guys a question real quick on this live stream. Is this earlier version of the motor, that this particular one was from 1931 on Mary's machine, is this motor the same strength, less strength, or more strength than the Singer 201-2? You guys know? Is it equal? Is it less? Or is it more than the successor that followed it, the 201-2, the Rolls-Royce of Singers? Susie is saying the same. Emma, did you say that that's called a lug screw? Is that what that thing is called? Or did you say a slug screw? Is that for real? Is that really called a slug screw? That little doodad that I showed you guys? This right here? I think I've called it a pinch screw in the past. So slug, S-L-U-G. All right. See, and that's why I say sometimes a teacher, always a student. I had no idea. I had no idea what this screw was called. So Emma looked it up for us. Isn't that great that we can learn from each other? I don't have all the answers. I wish I could tell you I did. But I'm still a student too, even though oftentimes I serve as a teacher to you. You guys are fellow teachers. And that's why I say we have the most powerful classroom in the world, because we're willing to learn from each other. It's not like in some of those settings where teachers think that they are like little demigods and they're always strutting around trying to make students feel like they're ignorant instead of empowering the students to become fellow teachers. I think we're a lot smarter than them, because we're willing to learn from each other. So this is a slug screw. What an interesting name, huh? What an interesting name. All right, let me set that down before I lose it again. And I got to wipe off my glasses real quick. Okay, so to answer the question, as far as Mary's motor is concerned, it's a little bit bigger than the 201-2. The 201-2 is typically going to come with a 0.5 amp motor, only a tenth of an amp, if I'm doing that correctly, a tenth of an amp larger than a featherweight. Believe it or not, as crazy as that sounds, the potted motor on the back of the Singer 201-2 is typically going to be 0.5. However, there were some that were 0.6, like Mary's motor. Mary's motor is actually 0.6 amps. So this tends to be a little bit bigger than the average 201-2 motor. But the reality is they upgraded that motor for the 201-2. They improved the stator design. They improved the stator designs. They improved the commutator design. And so the electricity efficiency in the 201- motor, even though in some cases it's a tenth of an amp smaller than Mary's motor, is going to perform equal to, or maybe even a little bit better as far as the punch and the delivery. But with that said, don't doubt for a second that once I go through this motor and fully clean it, optimize it, this motor is going to knock your socks off. But here's the actual nomenclature plate, so you can kind of see where that information is once I get my flashlight out. Trying to get it to focus. Hold on a second. There we go. So you also notice that the motor also has its own serial number as well, right there. So the long and short of it is both motors are very powerful. Both the 201-2 that came on the scene much later than the 101. It came on the scene right around 1935. So if you can imagine, this 101 series had been on the scene for 15 years. 15 years before the Rolls-Royce Singers ever came onto the scene. That just shows you how much this machine was loved and how powerful it was in the movement of the continued development of the potted motor. Just a spectacular machine that Mary picked from eBay and had them send to the workshop. So the potted motors are a direct drive, similar to the Slantomatics that have that vertically mounted motor where you have interlacing gears that come up above the pillar area. Both of those types of machines, the Slantomatics, the potted versions, are never going to need a belt to drive that machine, which is really cool. All right, what else did I want to show you? I'm trying to get my head here. Put this back on before I forget. Oh, actually, you know what? Before I put it on, I'll show you how to take the motor out too. That's an important thing to know. See if I can rotate this one more time here. If you guys all of a sudden hear me like go, ouch, it's because I probably ended up setting this on my finger and it's really heavy. All right, so let's do this. I think I'm done with needing to have the machine tilted back. So let me get rid of these weights again. And get my hand firmly placed on this base so that it doesn't tip over. And again, to give you an idea, the counterbalance needed, each one of these weights that are used for like a weight set, these were made in Canada. These are probably a good 10 to 12 pounds. So if you want to tilt your machine back and you have it in a similar base to Mary, you're going to need about 20 to 25 pounds to counterbalance it. Whoops, sorry about that, guys. Better the camera than the machine. All right, so I'm going to tilt this back down now so I can let go of it and not have to hold it in position. Okay, so now we're looking at the front of the machine, and I was talking about the motor and such. Let me move the balance wheel over there. So you're looking at the front of the machine. The first thing you'll notice about the 101, which is pretty cool, is that on Singers, we're always used to seeing the stitch length controller mounted somewhere on the pillar in this area here. So you're going, well, how do you adjust stitch length? It's down here. This little dial, that little dial right there is going to give you control over stitch length. And if you didn't know it, when you adjust stitch length on a vintage sewing machine, that stitch length is occurring because of the feed dogs being manipulated. So as we adjust this dial, we're going to be adjusting the feed of the feed dogs, which will allow that material to feed at a different rate of speed at a different interval, and then you get different stitch lengths. Almost like as a novice, as I was trying to demonstrate that free motion sewing on that 19E special you saw me do recently, and I was trying to move that material with some sort of even flow. I totally failed, but I learned a lot in doing it. But I was able to get huge stitch variation. I showed that to you guys during the premiere. It's the same thing here. The feed dogs are going to be manipulated by adjusting this dial, and then it's going to give you the control over different stitch lengths. Thankfully, this gives you a lot more regularity than trying to free motion it, because That is really, really tricky. So on the front of the machine, as we're looking at it, there's not a lot of things to look at. I mean, really here, we've got our tensioner here for winding a bobbin. We've got our spool pin where the thread will go when we're winding a bobbin. And then we got these two little doodads right there. What is that about? Let's see if I can move the camera a little bit closer and show that. We got a big screw and we got a little screw right here. Anybody know what those are for? Yeah, that is a workout. Mary is spot on. She's saying Scott got his workout. I walked my 4 miles the other day, and today I'm doing my upper body calisthenics with Mary's machine. So any guesses as to what these two screws are for? One is obviously getting the benefit of a chromium finish. The other one isn't. Is this particular screw or bolt more special than that one? Not if you want to get the motor out, because to get this motor out of Mary's machine, that screw that does not have the benefit of a chromium finish is the one that you need to remove. And once we remove that screw, we're able to take that entire motor assembly out. Well, that's not entirely true. We normally can take the entire motor assembly out, but right now, because the wiring has plugs on it underneath here, we're not going to be able to pull them through the pillar area of the machine. So we can start to remove the motor, but then we'll want to stop because otherwise the plugs will prevent us from doing that. So all you need to do is remove that screw to take the motor out. And I didn't try doing that yet on Mary's machine, so that sucker might really be frozen. Let's give it a try. Trying to choose my weapon of choice here. I'd love to put some dramatic act on, but that was really quite easy to turn. That was very, very nice. Yay. So the only thing holding that motor into place is this little guy right here. And Emma or someone else, I think this is just a common bolt. It probably doesn't have a fancy name like the other one of a lug screw or whatever Emma called it. This is just a common bolt. But this little common bolt that probably is only about 20 to 25 millimeters long is all that holds that motor into place. So I'm going to set that to the side. We'll lift this up again. I'll spin it around and then I'll show you how that motor comes out. So you can see right away we've got two bolts or screws right here. That's so we can break this motor down further and get access to all the areas that need to be optimized and serviced. Right here you can see part of the wraps. We've got the commutator, we've got the stators, we've got the stacked lamentations behind that. Also part of the lamentations can be seen right here. That entire motor needs to be serviced, otherwise it's not going to have anything close to that 0.6 amps that data plate says that it has. But we don't need to do that right now to get the motor out. All we have to do, since we took that bolt out of the front, is just gently rock this. And all of a sudden, we see how filthy that sucker is. And no, I have not cleaned this yet. I have not cleaned it, obviously. But you can kind of get a glimpse into the machine there. So all of that old, yucky, filthy, are you kidding me? What is that stuff? Do I need a hazmat suit on? All of that stuff needs to be cleaned out of there. And you guys have seen me do that before on another 101 that I had in the workshop, but it's been quite a while ago. So as I start to build a catalog of progress shots of Mary's machine, you're going to see all of this stuff mitigated. I'll also be inside of there inspecting wiring as well, into the pillar area, cleaning up all of those gears so that this motor will be able to do a great job for Mary when it gets eventually back out to Washington State. But this is only the first step. You can see the cable right there running down the pillar. This is only the first step of getting this machine ready. I got to set the camera back down. When you put it back in, you have to kind of line up the gears so that they're going to mesh up, and it's a little bit tricky, especially when you're on camera. There we go. So the clue for you is that the stators are going to be horizontal like this when you have it lined up pretty well. And then when you go to put that screw back in, the easiest thing I found, at least, is to use, I'll show you what I use, because it's a little bit tricky to get it lined up again just spot on. So once we get that motor into place, you can do one of two things. You can either shine a flashlight in there to see if you have it lined up correctly. But what I use too, and it's kind of helpful, is I use a punch similar to this. This one might be a little bit too big in circumference, but I kind of just slide it in there and then check the alignment. That feels like it's pretty much dead on right there. And hopefully we can get that screw back in without too much drama or events. That is, unless you're on camera, then it won't screw in straight away. So check that alignment again. Yeah, it looks like it's correct. At last, it's kind of, and these threads are filthy too, so that doesn't help our cause for sure. So now our motor is properly, once we get this screwed all the way in, our motor is properly anchored again in the back of the pillar so that it can spin up. It's not going to have vibration. It's not going to potentially damage the gears on the inside by not being lined up properly. Now, as to this other shiny cover right here, you take that off so that you can access a lubrication point that's key. All that is a lubrication portal. So we would use preferably a grease in there, because if you could imagine kind of looking through this pillar, as we slid that motor in, it had gears on top of it. It married up with gears that are mounted in there that come down and eventually feed through the bed down to the raceway. And that requires grease, not oil. So I'll use eventually when all this is cleaned up, I'll use my pink grease injected into here so that those gears that are interlacing, that are driving the main shaft and also feeding down to the raceway, are going to have proper lubrication, so those metal gears are not slamming into each other, but they're just nicely turning very, very gently. So that's a quick little schematic. The only other thing I didn't show you guys, and I can do it through later photos or something like that, is the fact that we talked about the auto lubrication system of Mary's machine, right? The auto lubrication system is so that this entire bed comes off. You remove your presser foot first. Just take your presser foot off, raise your presser foot lever so there's good clearance. You take out a bolt right there. There's another bolt on the back side. And then there's two more bolts, one that's going to be right here, and then one right on the rear of the pillar right back there. And then this entire bed lifts up, and then you're able to see that automatic lubrication system, which again kind of looks like a, where's my little guy? Hold on a second. When you take that cover off for the first time, it almost looks like a spider. It looks like little spider legs jetting out from the primary little reservoir right through here. These little holes right here, you're gonna see that they match up with where a little reservoir is, and then that lubricant, that machine oil, wicks out through these little arms to the key lubrication points of the bottom of the machine. And they were trying to just make it easier. They were trying to say, kind of like the Husqvarna people that eventually eliminated all the lubrication points across the top of the machine, because they were trying to give people the impression that the machine was easy to take care of, that it didn't need much attention. Well, that's not entirely true. I've shown you guys before on the Husqvarnas where supposedly that jam-free raceway doesn't need any lubrication, but it certainly does. So this was more of a, I hate to say it was more of a marketing gimmick to try to sell more machines so people would have the impression that they were a lot easier to take care of. Now, that's not to say the sump system, SUMP, the sump system, the reservoir system, the auto lubrication system doesn't have benefits. It certainly does, but it's not absolutely flawless when it comes to hitting all of the key lubrication points on the bottom of the machine. And I've shown that to you guys before. So trust your instincts more than gimmicks. Trust your instincts in taking care of your VSM machines more than gimmicks. Look at, when you rock that balance wheel, anything that pivots, pitches, raises up, lowers down, rotates, any of those key points on the machine are going to require lubrication. They're going to require lubrication no matter what the manufacturer tells you, because in the end, the manufacturer, even back in the 1930s, was hoping that, the machine would not last forever, so you have to buy another one at some point. Even back in the 1930s, planned obsolescence was in the movement of things, and they were already in the 1930s beginning to look at ways to build great machines, but they didn't want to build them so they would never, ever, ever have to be replaced. That's just the truth of the matter. So trust your instincts, whether it's a 101-4 like this from 1931 or any other machine, and keep your machines running strong and true, even if they don't have a spider. Even if they don't have a sump system that looks like a spider down in the bottom of the bed area. So, all right, I think I covered everything I pretty much wanted to cover. Let me look at the chat real quick and see if I missed anything. And thank you again to Emma and Susie for kind of jumping in and helping out. Susie helped us look up the birth date to confirm that. Emma helped us identify a couple of things and also identify the name of that silly little screw that holds the balance wheel on this model. So, all right, well, I'm going to end this live stream, and I'm working on Mary's machine on this workbench right now. And if you look across the way, you can see a 401A over there that I'm kind of embarrassed to say this to you guys, but I know you guys love me, even though, you know, I don't go as fast as some owners would like me to go sometimes. Mary is a saint and very patient with me. And Paula has also been very patient with me. But this is one of those Slantomatics that I donated back when we did the fundraiser for the History Museum. I was able to get the 404 done that went out to Pennsylvania to Sunny. And again, keep Sunny in your prayers, you guys. She's still going through treatment right now for cancer. She's still going through treatment for cancer right now, and she really could use our prayers. But this particular machine is going to eventually go out to Florida, to West Palm Beach area, in that neck of the woods. And this is going to go to Paula Noel. But this is one of those other Slantomatics that I donated that I'm still trying to get caught up. I'm still trying to get caught up. And then after I get done with this 401A, I'm going to be moving on to the 503A that also received a donation for that campaign. And then finally, the 403A that's going to go out to Roz out in Michigan. So there's just never, ever, try to get down to the camera level here. There's never, ever a boring moment in the workshop. And that's a good thing. That is a wonderful thing. That is a blessing that all of you are in giving me an opportunity to take on these projects. This is, got something in my eye. This is my livelihood. This is, this is my bread and butter. This is this keeps the wheels turning in the workshop. Folks like Mary that entrust great machines like this 101 to me. The opportunity to work on 401As because we did a great fundraiser. And a lot of you in this live stream right now were a big part of our success in all of the previous campaigns that we've done when we reached different milestones to help out great organizations like the History Museum in South Bend, Indiana, the local Humane Society here in Oconto. And we're only about 300 subscribers away from our next milestone of hitting 12,000 on the channel. And then we're going to be doing another contest giveaway. I don't think we're going to do a fundraiser this time, but maybe when we hit a baker's dozen, 13,000 subscribers down the road a ways, maybe we'll look at doing another fundraiser at that time. But you guys have been so incredibly supportive of that, so generous in helping causes, and made a huge difference. A history museum that might have become a statistic and closed its doors apart from all of you helping with that. A humane society that was struggling was at 100% capacity, and all of you jumped in again. Many of you in this live stream right now were a huge part of that as well. So thank you for supporting what I do, and then in turn going above and beyond and supporting causes that are a blessing and a benefit to either a local community like Oconto in helping their critters, or History Museum in South Bend, Indiana, or who knows where we'll go next. I'd be open to ideas on that. So thanks for joining the live stream. Thank you, Mary, for sending this by way of eBay to the workshop so I can begin going through it. And we can eventually see this machine and that machine back there premiered and doing their magic on the big screen. Grab your popcorn. Yeah. All right. Take care, everybody. I'm going to end with some music if I can get this to do its thing. Do its thing. Come on. Oh, that's boring. That's boring. Something fun. Give me something fun. Yeah. Better take the glasses off. All right. This is where we need to be focusing, not on my semi-dance moves. Amazing 1931 101-4. Thank you again, Mary. Merry Christmas, everybody. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Class is officially over. Unless you want to listen to the music, you can hang out with me for the music for a little bit. Well, after all of that machine lifting, I'm going to grab myself a gumball. And if you were here, I would share. I really would. One, two, three, four, and five. Oh, and I'll just mention real quick, remember, if you're in the middle of chatting with somebody at the end of a live stream or a premiere, the chat stays active for a while after the live stream or premiere ends. So feel free to interact with folks, get to know them, do that social thing. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. All right. See you guys.